Today, we're diving into the world of toddler behavior with Sara Whaley, a seasoned parent coach who believes that every toddler tantrum is just a conversation waiting to be understood. If you're feeling overwhelmed by those never ending tantrums, the big emotions, and the chaos of the wakeful windows, then this episode is going to be your lifeline. If the phrase terrible twos or toddler sends a shiver down your spine, tune in to gain the practical strategies to bring more joy and sleep to your home. In our most sleep deprived moments, our children will teach us exactly what we need in order to learn and grow into who we were created to be. These are the loving lessons we will learn whether we were wanting to or not. I'm Irene Googe, your sleep coach, and I'm on mission to educate parents on how to help their young children sleep. Welcome to the journey. Hello, and welcome to the Loving Lessons Learned podcast. I am super excited to introduce you to my special guest, Sara Whaley, who is a parent coach of toddlers struggling with challenging behaviors. She's also a former developmental therapist and a board certified behavior analyst with over 17 years of experience working with families. In addition, she's a mom to two young children and homeschooling them too. So, welcome, Sara. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you.
And so, what made you decide to venture into toddler behavior? Because I think toddlers take a special person for sure. Because I was a toddler teacher. I'm like, I think we're a little crazy. I'm just going to put that.
It's true. I'm like, give me a toddler tantrum. I love it. So there are multiple reasons. The first reason is that when I worked in home and in clinic, and I worked in schools and daycares and stuff, toddlers were my jam. That's what I had the most experience with. I also liked that age. They're so cute and fun, and their tantrums are a little bit smaller than, an 8-year-old, because I was working with autistic children. So I saw a wide range of behavior, some pretty severe behavior. And I just loved the toddlers. And then when I became a mom, I still loved the toddlers. And I had double toddler stage. My kids are 19 months apart. So I did it times two. And I still really loved it. And I also saw how challenging and obviously experienced how challenging it can be. But because I had this extensive background in working with toddlers, it helped me, tremendously, like beyond words, to understand behavior and understand how to deal with it, understand how to parent. And I felt like I had to tweak things as a parent versus like when you're working one-on-one in a clinic, or, you're working one-on-one or you're getting paid to be there. And so I was able to kind of tweak things and make them more realistic for parents. And so that was part of it.
Practical.
Right. Practical. That's a good word. Yeah. So I saw how much I still enjoyed the toddler stage, even when I was in the thick of it. And I know that so many parents don't, but I think a lot of that is a lack of understanding of the toddler stage. And so I wanted to help other parents, especially moms, actually enjoy this. So that's why I'm joyful toddler parenting.
Toddler parenting.
Yes.
I love it. That is so wonderful. And because, right, toddlers get a bad rap. Like it's all about terrible twos and tantrums and all that. And I think that they're often just misunderstood little pint-sized people.
Yes.
And so
absolutely.
I wonder if you could share a little bit about like, what is it that you would want someone to understand about toddler behavior?
I think the biggest thing is that behavior is communication. And I feel like people hear this all the time, but don't really understand what that means. And it means like they are actually trying to communicate, and the behavior they're using, hitting, tantruming, screaming, throwing, pushing, whatever it is the most efficient and effective way that they have to communicate their wants and needs. And so if you can see this as, okay, they're trying to communicate and they're communicating the best way they know how. And then it's my job as a parent to teach them a more appropriate, maybe safer, less annoying way to communicate that same thing. But parents don't understand it. Like they will understand that behavior is communication in quotes, but they don't understand, oh, it's therefore it's my job to teach a different way to communicate that same thing.
Yeah.
And that's like really the basis of what I teach.
Yeah, to communicate more effectively. And it's, one of the reasons why I think it's important for parents to know about you is because those wakeful windows with toddlers can be super challenging. And one of the things that I've observed in the years with sleep coaching is that when children are having these tantrums and disconnects with parents, it makes bedtime more challenging. And
Of course.
I mean, it makes everything challenging,
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
I love that, I do hear from parents. They're like, I know their behavior is just communicating things to me. And I know personally when I was doing my home daycare, like I was like, these kids are here just to piss me off. It's like thing. But I was like, you know what? Like, no, like it was really me having to shift my mindset
Mhm.
around that. And so I wonder, like, what do you do to help parents understand that when they're in the heat of these moments with a toddler and they're having these moments where you're like, oh,
Yeah. I think one is like really explaining that and giving them like a full, like I have a whole resource library that talks about this in part, but really understanding what that means and like how that is, how we're communicating that. But also teaching parents how to teach. Because when it comes to behavior, like when it comes to school stuff, we all know we need to teach things. But when it comes to behavior, parents don't understand, even a lot of teachers, actually. I've worked with a lot of teachers. They don't understand that they have to teach behavior in the exact same way that we teach academic skills. And so when parents understand that, it can help to take some of the emotion out and help them to take out like that their toddlers like personally attacking them or trying to piss them off. um so that's one.
that's how it
I mean
feels,
that's
right?
yeah I mean and I always tell parents, I'm like, toddlers are annoying, like they just are sometimes, not always, but like they can be really annoying.
Yes, they can.
But it's not designed to like infuriate us. Sometimes it
Mhm.
is.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just going to share. I think that one of the things that I observed or remember from my days was thinking about when I didn't take care of myself.
I was
Then
going to say that too.
the
Yeah.
behaviors just get more intensified. And so for me, it's been this journey of having to learn, how do I take care of my people and myself and
Yeah.
take care of the house and all the things. And that can be very overwhelming for parents. And I think
Absolutely.
that's where reaching out for help and getting support, especially when things have gotten to a level where you're really not enjoying and feeling disconnected maybe from a child.
That absolutely. Yeah, I have in my coaching, I really have two parts.
Mhm.
Three. Well, at least two. I have like the parents' behavior and the toddler's behavior
Mm.
and parent behavior also. And I think sometimes there's this understanding that child behavior, toddler behavior is communication, but there's not that same understanding for parents. Like, well, your behavior is also communication. So like if you are snapping at your kid constantly, why? Okay, maybe you have unmet needs, you haven't slept, you haven't eaten. I mean, I have a family right now, the mom's like, oh yeah, I like don't ever eat, and I have like some condition where like she needs to eat, and I'm like, well yeah, of course you're losing your shit. Sorry,
Yeah.
so I don't know if I can swear.
It's all good. Sometimes we have
Okay.
those moments, right?
Like of course you're losing it, like you haven't eaten and you're completely dysregulated. So looking at parent behavior and toddler behavior in the same way and helping everybody communicate their needs and wants and then actually meeting those is really really important, but doing
Yeah.
it together in the combination.
Yeah. So what do you do to help yourself in your situations with your children when you encounter those difficult moments?
Yeah. I have to walk away sometimes. So catching myself, and just saying like, I need a minute, walking away is my big, like, if I'm like real on edge, that's what I do. I do a lot proactively. So I do a
Mhm.
lot of meeting my needs. I eat breakfast, I eat lunch, I eat dinner. I'm not eating my kids chicken nuggets off their plate. I'm eating like a full meal for myself
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
them. Um, and I feel like I deserve that. And so does everybody listening. And I get exercise and I get sleep and like, I just take care of myself. So I'm starting each day feeling fresh, feeling not, maybe not every day, but most days
Most
feeling
days
fresh,
feeling
right? Like,
fresh.
yeah, I'm not starting like at this deficit.
Mhm.
And so that makes the biggest difference. But then throughout the day, taking a deep breath when my kids are pissing me off, because they do piss me off, or walking away, or having a reset. Like my kids are a little bit older now, so with little toddlers, this doesn't work. But sometimes I'm like, we all have to go to our rooms for a few minutes and just like have a reset. We gotta redo this because this is not working today.
Yeah.
Um, and getting outside, we get outside, and that makes the biggest difference for everybody.
Yeah. Sarah, one of the things I love hearing is like you talk about like the repair and like you're modeling what you want the kids to really know to do
Mm-hmm.
in those difficult moments. And those are the things that our children will remember down the road. And so hopefully when they're faced with difficult toddlers, they will have a
Mm-hmm.
better experience when they have those
Well,
moments.
yeah, and I think that when if we go back to earlier in our conversation of helping parents understand, it's like how hard is it for us as adults to regulate our emotions? And we're, 20, 30, 40 years old, but a lot of times our expectations for 2, 3, 4, 5 year olds are way higher than they are for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I think that also being like, okay, I don't have this skill yet, so of course my toddler doesn't, and we have to all learn it together.
Yeah. Sarah, it's interesting you bring up regulate your emotions. I think that, do you think that parents sometimes forget that they're dealing with this emotional turmoil that's brewing throughout the day for themselves?
Yes. I think there is a lot of separation of parent behavior and kid behavior, and it's kind of like, if my kid's behavior was fixed, then my behavior would be fixed. But
Mhm.
it really goes so much hand in hand, um, that we have to be aware of our emotions as parents and be able to learn how to regulate. And when you have a toddler with really challenging behavior, which is what my clients have, you can emotionally regulate all day, but if your kid is like smacking you in the face and attacking their little sibling and running away, like, you being emotionally regulated is not going to solve that problem. So we also have to work on behavior, but it
Right.
again, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. I think a lot of times as parents, I think we want to go to like, if I just solve this one part, everything will be different. And it's like, I feel like everything touches everything and it's very complex.
Yeah.
And learning what I love what you're talking about, like with the child communication and the parent communication all working together. I'm wondering what type of, like, if a parent is dealing with toddler behaviors, how would they know that they should potentially reach out to you? Like, what behaviors would you be noticing or observing in the house that parents would be like, I need Sarah's help so I can have a
Yeah.
joyful journey here?
Yeah. So I have two main types of clients. I would say the majority of my clients have a toddler with pretty intense behavior. A lot of them have a suspected or confirmed diagnosis of autism, ADHD, or sensory issues. A lot of them also have speech delays. So the specific behaviors that I get a lot are really intense tantrums or meltdowns. So, I mean, an hour long, 30 minutes to an hour long, running off to where it's causing big safety issues.
Mm.
Um, Really rough routines. So, I mean, like bedtime is taking a couple of hours, or getting out the door. Like, I have a new parent. She's like, just literally getting out the door, putting shoes on to getting in the car is taking 30 to 45 minutes. So, I mean, it's impacting every part of
Everything.
our life, right?
Mm.
I would say those are kind of any sort of like aggression, like, beyond just like occasionally throwing or hitting, but like real aggression. So that's kind of like one part is really intense toddler behavior. And then sometimes, in addition to or instead, we have more typical toddler behavior, but we have a parent, usually a mom, who is incredibly burnt out, tons of mom guilt, not taking care of themselves, not enjoying the toddler stage. And they usually are pretty aware. They're like, this is a me thing, but I want to enjoy my kid because I recognize that my kid is awesome, but I'm not enjoying them right now, and I'm not enjoying motherhood. And then we still work on some toddler behavior, but we're more working on parent behavior. So those are kind of my two main types of clients.
That's great to know. And then if they work with you, what does that look like for them to
Yeah.
pursue that journey?
So I have two different levels of support, and I help parents kind of figure out what's the best level, and they can go up and down a level depending, throughout the program. So the program is 4 months, which allows them to make a lot of progress, and then something will happen during that 4 months, like a vacation, a sickness, a transition out of school or back to school, or a holiday. Something will happen to derail their progress. And so they can practice kind of getting back on track with support, which I mean, they're going to get off track in life. But this way they can practice getting back on track and then have more time to really like solidify the skills. Um, and then we do weekly calls, weekly group calls, and they're very small. Usually it's 3, 4 families max. So everybody gets one-on-one coaching on those calls. And then for my level one, my lower level, they also get 2 private check-ins, where they can fill out a form and check in with me twice a month, for each month. So I guess 8 total check-ins. And then my level 2, which is what almost everybody does, is where you get the Voxer support. So it's a voice and text messaging app, and you get daily unlimited support. So you can message me all day, every day if you want to. And so we can go back and forth and really resolve issues really quickly, because you're not like trying something and then waiting a week for me to respond, or, for the
Mm.
next call. So that's what most people choose, just because it's so hands-on. You're getting so much support.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I just think of like myself, like when you're in the thick of it, just to have someone come alongside you and say,
Yeah.
hey, like you're doing it, and kind of having some coaching opportunities, right? Like, we're wanting
Yeah.
to teach our kiddos, but are we as parents getting the support we need to help
Yeah.
us through in the thick of these moments?
Yeah, definitely.
Sara, what skill would you say, or skills, do you feel like parents might be working on for themselves
In my program or in general?
in general? I mean, it could be either or, like, is there a specific skill that you think, like, as a parent, like, I need to hone and work on?
I would say emotional regulation.
Okay.
I think that is the biggest one, is learning how to be able to stay calm yourself, or not even stay calm, but like how to regulate your emotions, or be mad in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I love your Instagram. Anyone who's watching this, I'm going to include Sarah's Instagram in the show notes, but like you just give a lot of good information about like having those big emotions and knowing how to
Yeah.
deal with it in a real practical way. And I think for myself personally, I know I struggled with being able to even identify what emotion I was having. Like, I just learned to stuff my
Yeah.
emotions. So when it came to
Right.
my kiddos, like it was like realizing like, oh, I can't stuff it because it's just building, building, building. And then it was just going to be this big explosion. And
Yeah.
so not always the most effective parenting tool. And then for me personally, like as a gentle sleep coach, I was like, well, that doesn't seem so gentle. But recognizing like what does gentle really mean? And I'm
Hmm.
wondering if you can maybe share a little bit about that, because you talk a lot about that in your reels. And I think it's so super helpful for parents to understand gentle parenting.
Yeah. So to me, gentle parenting is authoritative parenting, not authoritarian,
Yeah.
authoritative. But where it's very high warmth, it's respectful, and there are very clear boundaries, and we're very firm with those boundaries in a kind and loving way. So it doesn't mean you're like mean. It's the opposite of being mean, but it's like you're setting these clear things, and then within that, you can be very kind and loving, and you can be there for your kids' emotions. Um, I could go on a whole tangent on the
Yeah.
way that gentle parenting has devolved into permissive parenting. It's not supposed to be permissive, though. It's supposed to be authoritative.
Yeah, that is always true for sure. And, I think a
Yeah.
lot of times people equate like, oh, if we're gentle, that they're not going to cry. And it's learning to be with the big emotions our children are dealing with. And that, to me, I'm always like the learning to just be with and be still. I'm like, that is somehow or other a skill that we develop as
Hmm.
parents to be in those hard moments with our
Well,
little
I
ones.
mean, yeah, I think, and I see this all the time. I have to tell clients all the time, I'm like, your job is not to keep your toddler happy all the time. That's not,
Uh,
just not your job. And I think, I mean, people are just humans in general are very uncomfortable with emotion. We don't want to see our kids upset. I think a lot of people's goal is to stay calm when really the goal should be to be able to communicate any feeling in an appropriate way, because
mhm.
anger is normal, and being upset and being frustrated, like I absolutely get angry and frustrated with
Yeah.
my kids, and for the most part I can communicate that in an appropriate way, but it doesn't mean I'm never angry. I'm not
Right.
always calm.
Yeah. Well, but it's like being kind and firm,
Right, right.
through that whole process. And so, yeah, I think that there's a disconnect sometimes for parents as they're trying to figure out, well, how do I do this? And what do I say? And, like from a sleep coaching perspective, one of the things I see is like parents will say, like, oh, but they're so sad, and like to your point of like, sometimes I am sad if I have to stop playing and doing what I want to do. Like, again, to your point of like, we're not trying to keep our kids happy all the time. Like, we would love them to, but that is also not a realistic expectation. And I think it goes back to your point that you said earlier is like the expectations we put on our children and what we
Yeah.
expect for ourselves that can be really exhausting. I think that creates a lot of the fatigue that we
Yes.
carry as like with mom guilt or mom shame and things like that.
Yeah, the parents I see trying to avoid emotion, either their own or their kids, they are the parents that are most reactive because they bottle it up and then they explode because we all get mad. And then with their kids, they try to keep them happy, so they end up walking on eggshells, and then they explode. And then their kid has big meltdowns, and it's, I mean, it's very related.
Yeah. Sara, what do you say to the parent that's listening right now and maybe feels like the behavior in their home is too far gone? Like they'll never get out of this.
I think having, and I say this with personal experience, having somebody else come along and be like, here's where we start. I've got this, and taking over a little bit of the responsibility so that you're not trying to figure it all out and play the role of a professional and a parent can make a huge difference. Um, it's just, it can just be a lot. And it is so rare that I have a family that I can't help, because I have so much experience. But when you're in it as the parent, it is so hard to know where to start and what strategies to use, and then to work on your own emotions, because of course you have all of these emotions about your kid and feeling like a failure and worrying about when they're 30. Like, it's hard. So I
Yeah.
think kind of giving a little bit of that over to a professional, whether that's me or, whatever your issue is, can really make an enormous difference.
No, I love that. And I love that you just come alongside and like love on those parents and help them through all of that because you know what, the toddler season is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like they're just so busy, like I think
Yeah.
I learned the most loving lessons in that season of my life,
Yeah.
but I was like, like thank goodness I'm done with that season of my life
Yeah,
too, but like to go back and like see the toddler experience, like there's just so much they're so eager to learn about like life and all the
everything.
things. And I think that sometimes when we slow down and pause, we can glean some of that wisdom from them. And to your title of your business, it makes toddlerhood joyful parenting
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I think changing some of the expectations, even like when my kids were super little and we would go on a walk, they would want to stop. I mean, every step, right? And like, oh my gosh, an acorn. One time they spent like 10 minutes looking at a string, like a string, not like a rainbow string, not just like a brown string. And they just asked all these questions and they were so into it. And it's like, if you have not adjusted your expectations to a toddler, you're going to be so frustrated because that's annoying if you're like, I'm going to go get my exercise. But if you can adjust your expectations just overall to fit the phase of life you're in, like it's pretty beautiful to sit and look at a string or an acorn.
Yeah, it's stop and smell the roses with your
Yeah,
child. It's so
literally.
great. Like
Yes,
literally, like just stop, like because
literally.
you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Enjoying that
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
I think that too, like our culture doesn't support going slow. We're like biggie size, go fast, do
Yeah.
more. And that can be a huge challenge.
Yes.
I wonder if you have any tips or tricks to share with parents dealing with maybe screen time, because I think that we're seeing it trickle down younger and younger for
Mhm.
little ones. Do you have any tips or tricks you could share with?
I mean, for me, we have very clear boundaries around it. I think, every family has to do what is best for them. We're not anti-TV. My kids do watch TV, but it's very much I am in control. And I tell them when it goes on and off and we limit it. And um that works best for our family. We don't do like devices, tablets, or anything other than road trips, which is my best parenting hack ever, is never do devices and then save them for road trips and traveling. And then it's the most magical thing ever, and traveling is great. But
That's a great
I
tip
mean,
for traveling.
right?
Yes.
But I think for our family, that's what works. And I do see just a lot of using devices to pacify kids. My kid is upset, I'm going to have them regulate on a tablet. And I think that is, and not trying to be judgmental, but I do think that is problematic, that we've got to be able to help our kids work through their big emotions and not just try to stop them with a device.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as you were saying that, a couple of things came to mind. One, I hear that you've made a decision that works for your family. And I
yes,
think that's always the key. Like, so once you make a decision, then that's going to be easy to follow through. But the
yes,
other thing too, like I know even for adults, like we can get stuck on our devices, like instead of dealing
yeah,
with our feelings, like let me just
totally.
scroll or shop or do all the things. And so
Yeah,
again, learning to regulate those emotions can be
yeah.
super helpful.
I think so much of this, I mean, parenting, device use, everything comes back to being intentional.
Mhm.
It's like when my kids are watching TV, it's an intentional choice. And I'm like, I'm gonna either go take time for myself or I'm, making dinner or whatever. Like it's a very intentional thing versus like we're bored, we're gonna turn the TV on. So
Right.
again, we're not like anti-TV. My kids watch
Yeah.
TV, but it's done with intention. And I think that makes a huge difference. And I'm trying to do that with my phone, but it's really
Yeah.
hard.
It's a process though, right? Like we want to be strategic about it and,
Yeah.
have some
Yeah.
strategy to do things to take care of yourself. And I don't think that there's always like just the right way or the wrong way, but I think a lot of parents
No.
watching this might be like, no, just tell me what the thing is that I need to do. And I think it's a matter of figuring out what the decisions are that's going to be best to serve your family.
Yeah, I think doing something that's in line with your values. I think it just being intentional makes the big, like I tell clients, I'm like, go turn the TV on for your kid so that you can eat. And like
Yeah.
I will give that advice and they're like, well, I had someone just last week, like I've heard like you shouldn't start your day with TV. And I'm like, but you should start your day with eating. So if that's what it takes in this season, go turn the TV on for your kids and make an intentional choice and get yourself some breakfast. And then you can move on with your day. So I do think there's, again, I'm not anti screens. I think there's a time and
Yeah.
a place, but just be intentional with it, I guess.
But you know what I love about what you just shared is that like it can be a tool in your tool belt
Yes,
and use it in a way
absolutely.
that's going to support everybody in the whole family.
Yes,
And so, yeah,
exactly.
now I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. A lot of times we can get very black and white, especially if we're Googling and we hear like the no, don't do this. And, like we
right,
feel like we put all these rules and expectations on ourselves. And going back to what we started with, it's like, how do we find these practical ways to live and do life together with
right.
our little?
Yeah, it's not always like I said to this client, I'm like, look, in an ideal world, my kids would probably not watch TV, but like it's not ideal.
Yeah.
And so I make an intentional choice and I choose what they watch, right? Like I'm not letting them watch things that are inappropriate, like they're watching PBS Kids and stuff that like I feel good about, but it's very intentional. And so sometimes it's like choosing choosing the thing that's like a little bit better than the other thing. And it's,
Mhm.
even if it's not your number one choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Sarah, I know that you and I could probably talk all day
Yeah.
because we love toddlers. We love talking about toddlers and behaviors and emotions and all those things. Before we wrap up, I want to do our top 5 loving lessons learned. And so I'm wondering if you have a favorite parenting product or service that
Yeah.
you got out there.
So I don't use this as much anymore, but the tag along handle is a one of the few products that I recommend to almost every client. I've shared it on my Instagram a lot, but it's just a little handle that attaches to like a stroller, a bag, a suitcase, whatever. And it's colorful and it's a great clear boundary for a kid to hold on to if they are learning how to walk with you. Um, my kids loved it when they were little, loved it.
Yeah,
And
very
it's cheap
concrete
and
for them to see.
yes, yeah,
Love
it's
it.
that is a great product.
Awesome. What is your best self-care tip that you do for yourself or that you would share with somebody else?
I get up before my kids, and I know people are like, oh, but that is the difference in my behavior when I get up before my kids and I have time to wake up and be a human versus getting woken up by demanding children is like night and day.
I would 100% agree.
Mhm.
What is something you never thought you would do or say?
Put your penis away. Like,
What?
I don't know why I have to say this so often. And if
So
you have a
often.
boy, like,
Yes, you
anybody who
do.
has a boy is going to be like, yep.
Yep, we're saying that. Yep.
Like, why? Why do I have to say this all the time?
Yes, they do. I love it. And what's the one big takeaway you want parents to really know from our conversation today?
I think the biggest thing is that you are a good parent and understanding that your behavior is also communication. Like, again, there's so much talk about toddlers' behavior and children's behavior being communication, but really understanding that your behavior is as well. And so, when I'm working with parents, my whole like philosophy is built on being kind and compassionate to ourselves and changing behavior that way versus
Mm.
shaming and guilting and making ourselves feel like shit. Crap.
Yeah, all of it, right? All of it.
Yeah.
And as a small business owner, what is something that you've learned in your entrepreneurial journey?
Um, we were talking about it before we started recording, but I think trusting my gut, of like trusting that I know who I want to work with and that those clients will come. We were talking about, I was saying I put up the pricing for my services on my website, and that's like against all the, top business coaches' advice. But that's what my gut says to do, and it aligns with my values. So really going with my gut, I think is a huge hard thing, but a good thing to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. And Sarah, I think that lends itself so much to even like what parents can take away, like
Mhm.
when we decide, like, hey, this is what I value in my home, just makes everything so much better and easier.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
There's so much noise in the world. And so like being able to come back to like, what do I believe? What aligns with my values? Like, what do I want my life to look like? Not what does social media tell me to do?
Yeah. Well, and I think more than anything, right, for parents to just show up and be themselves. Be
Yeah.
you. Be like who your child needs you to be.
Mhm.
Like, be that person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
well, Sarah, thank you again so much for being here. And I can't wait for us to connect again and talk more about toddlers.
Thanks for having me. It was so fun talking. I could talk all day.
Yes. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into today's show. You can see all of the details and show notes below. And as you go out into your day, I hope that you'll make it your mission to be calm, confident, and rested as you lead today. Sweet dreams.